Hello students, this is Professor Unking and I just wanted to give you an opportunity to understand the requirements for this week's assignment. So we're going to go through and conduct a short lesson on how to use the IDW feature within Autodesk Inventor and also to help explain the expectations for this week's assignments. Um, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go with a new part. And in here, let's go ahead and just stick with English units under standard inch.ipt. Just have to wait for things to load in. And I'm going to just draw something very simple. Of course, your assignments that are due this week are a little bit more complex than what I'm going to be showing you here. But let's go ahead and create a 2D sketch from the XY plane. Okay, and like I said, I'm just going to draw something relatively simple. What I want to do is draw like a 2-point center rectangle about the origin. And let's make this about 3 inches by 1 inch. I'm going to zoom out so you can see it. Now I'm going to draw another rectangle over here in this upper right corner. And let's make that a 0.5 by 0.2 rectangle, and I'll locate it in a second. I also want to throw in a circle over here, and let's make the diameter of that circle to be 0.25. Let's go ahead and locate these. I want to locate the top of that with respect to the top edge. Let's make that to be 0.25 from there. And I want to choose the right side edge with respect to the right edge. And let's make that to be also 0.25. We're just going to simplify things a little bit. And last but not least, let's go ahead and locate the circle. And I want to locate it from the left side to be 0.5. And from the bottom to the circle to be 0.25. Okay, let me go ahead and zoom out so you can see all the dimensions. I'm going to move this dimension down a little bit. And I'm actually going to move the 3-inch dimension up, and you'll see why in a minute. This kind of gets you in the habit of making sure your dimensions are, or start getting into the mindset of making sure your dimensions are outside your part. Okay, and let me take care of the circle as well. I'm going to just move it. And basically all I'm doing is making sure I'm out of the dimension command. I'm just moving my mouse over to the dimension and just moving it. I'm going to do the same thing with the diameter of the circle. I'm going to take it and make sure it's outside my part. Alright, let's go ahead and finish sketch. And I'm going to extrude the shape both ways and just leave it at 1 inch. Okay, what I want to do is go ahead and save this part. I'm just going to save this as, I'll put it onto my desktop here temporarily, and we'll call this block. Yeah, unique name, huh? Alright, so now what I want to do with the block is start with a brand new type of file. So I'm going to click on New. And if we scroll down on the bottom, or near the bottom, you'll see this thing that says ANSI-inch.idw. So just click on that while we're waiting to load that in. You're going to notice some features. I don't know if any of you have ever seen a particular drawing file before, but this is basically what a drawing sheet looks like. Um, you have the drawing border, which kind of gives you some various things like the a letter coordinates. So if you needed to ever refer to or to inform somebody where a specific view or part of a drawing is, you could give them like letter coordinates like region A4 or whatnot. Over here on the right side, you'll see that you have a size, which is a C size sheet. You have the drawing number, the title, and this area right here is your drawing area, and that's where your part is going to go. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the base command or function that we have to do, and that's where we choose base. Now what I want to do always is try to go to this pull down menu right here and look onto where the file is. Now notice that let me back up one step. You'll notice that it automatically has chosen block because that's the last part that I created. But what if you were drawing a lot of different parts and you wouldn't necessarily pick up the one that you want? So what I want to do is try to find that file. So I'm going to go down to the bottom and try to find block. Now before we do anything, I just want you to see that the orientation is already chosen as the front view, okay? Or we could choose current, top, bottom. Now if I just move my mouse over into the drawing field in the drawing, you'll see that I have my object there, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click once because I want to start off with my front view, and this is why I was telling you it's best to go ahead and draw everything with respect to top, front, right. That way you can easily pick up this stuff. So let's go ahead and pick on the top view, and then all I have to do now to get a projected view is to push upward to give me the top view. Okay, and notice that it creates a temporary box, and the next thing I want to do is move it over to the right to create my right view, and then I'm just going to move my mouse up into the upper right corner of my drawing and select my isometric view. Now all you have to do to create these views is to right click and click on the button that says create, and you'll notice that it also does all the hidden lines. You see these hidden lines here showing where these things are located, and in the hidden lines there's your top view, your front view, and your right side view, and your isometric view. Now what I want to do first is go over here to the isometric view and just move your mouse until you see a box appear around the isometric view. So if I right click on that, once I have the box highlighted, what we can do is edit the views. So if you see a little button that says edit view, select that. Okay, and in this what I want to do is a couple things. Okay, first things I want to do is I always want my isometric view to be shaded. So if you look over here under style, you'll see one that says hidden line removed. The default is to remove the hidden line, so that's one thing that I want to do. The next thing I want to do is create a shaded view. Okay. Another thing I want to do in this particular view is if you look over here to the left, you'll see a little light bulb that says toggle label visibility. Let's go ahead and turn that on. Okay, and we're going to leave the scale as 1:1 for now. In our view identifier, we're going to call that isometric view. Okay, and then to the right of that you'll see a little pencil, and under the pencil we want to edit the view label. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on the pencil. You should get another pop-up window that shows up. Okay, so in this particular thing, what this is going to do is create a label that's underneath the actual view in question. But the default for Inventor shows that the view title and the scale is at the same dimension height. I want to actually change that. So let's go ahead and just move our mouse over to where you see this grayed in view word and just make sure it's highlighted. And we want to maximize the size of that. Let's go ahead and change that to 0.24, and we'll leave the scale as 0.8. Now notice in here the grayed out areas are the things that are going to be put in based on what you've put into the view scale label. So that's something that you don't want to change. Now I could change the scale. I could also put in other words outside here, but we're going to leave it alone. You could also change the font style. You can change whether you left justify, center justify, right justify. We're just going to leave the defaults alone and hit OK. And now last but not least, in this particular window, we're going to hit OK. Notice that it has now changed the drawing or that particular part to be shaded. And the other thing that we're going to do here is we're going to move by, you see the view, it says isometric view. That's kind of close to the actual view, so what I want to do is just move my mouse where it says isometric view until you see this little A with a crosshairs on it. And so what I'm going to do is just hold my left mouse button and just drag that down a little bit, just to give it a little bit of spacing. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is go to the front view. Okay, and just like I did with the isometric view, I want to label every single view. So go ahead and move your mouse until you see that box around the front view, right click on it and edit view. Okay, let's turn the light bulb back on. We're going to leave all the defaults with the style. We do not want the front, top, and right to be shaded. So we do want hidden lines shown. So I'm going to make this and call this front view. Okay, and then I'm going to click on the pencil again, and I just want to highlight the view and just change the size of that to 0.240. Hit OK, and notice that I put this in all caps. That's fine. And in fact, what I'm going to do is move that down. I'm going to go back to my isometric view, edit that. I should have typed that in all caps as well, so I'm going to just change that to all caps. Okay. And I do want to move the front view down a little bit because I'm going to be putting some dimensions in here in a minute. Now, keep in mind, anytime that we have our isometric view, avoid putting any notes or any dimensions on the isometric view, and also avoid putting any hidden lines on the isometric view as well. Okay, let's do the same thing with the top view. I'm going to edit the view there. I'm going to turn the light bulb on. I'm going to change this to top view. Click on the pencil, and on the first word I'm going to change that dimension to 0.240 and hit OK. Move that down a little bit. Okay, and the right view, right click on it and edit view. Turn the light bulb on. Change that to right side view. Click on the pencil again and click on the word view. Change the size of that to 0.240 and hit OK. Now what I want you to also notice, there's something that's really important. If I go ahead and click into the right side view, I'm going to edit that. Notice that in here under the scale, this is grayed out. I cannot change that. And the main reason why I can't change the scale of the right side view because it's based off of the front view. Okay, so whatever I change the front view to be, it has to be in line with the right side view has to be in line with the front view. Okay, so whatever the scale of the front view is, the right side view and the top view are also going to be the same. Okay, and that's why this box is checked. It says scale from the base. Now you could change the scale, but I would not recommend that. Just keep it consistent with the front view. Now, one thing I want you to notice in this particular drawing, or this drawing sheet, Okay, you also want to stay inside where these borders are. You see where the arrow and the black line is? Do not try to draw anything outside this border, because if you do, you'll get points deducted. Okay, it's not proper for you to draw anything outside of this black line. Consider that like a wall that you want to stay in. Another thing that I want you to notice is that we want to try to maximize the use of this drawing sheet. Right now we're not doing that. We have a lot of excess space. So there's things that I can do. So let's try maximizing this area in here, and I could just move the isometric view up here a little bit more, and I'm going to edit that view again by right clicking on the box, and with the isometric view I can actually change the scale of that to 2 to 1. Okay, make it double the size, and notice that it automatically reflect the scale 2 to 1. Okay, so that you can see it a little bit better. Okay, now the next thing I want to do is start adding some features to this particular part. And another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move this top view up a little bit higher to give me more space. I'm going to move the top view and the front view titles down just a little bit. Okay. All right. So the things that we need to do is start adding some certain features. Like with anytime we have a circle, we want to make sure we know that that's a circle. And so the next tab up here, next to the right of place views, is one that's known as annotate. So click on annotate. You'll notice that you'll have all your dimensions, and you have some other features where you can add leader text, regular text. You can create a parts list, which is something that we'll do in a future lesson, and balloons for the different parts. But since we only have a single part, we don't need to worry about having a parts list. Now over here to the left, you'll see a dimension command, your baseline command, baseline dimensions, ordinate, chain, all that stuff's neat. But we can also retrieve the dimensions from the part itself. So when we drew this part, we can actually retrieve the dimensions that we used to draw that part. But before we do that, what we want to do is identify anywhere we have a circle. And the first thing we're going to do is actually create a center mark. So if we go over here where it says symbols and choose that one that has a center mark, let's select that. And I'm going to move it over to the circle. And so let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit. You'll notice that it has put a center mark on that circle, kind of like a crosshair. Now, since we have a circle, it's also reflected in the top view. It shows that the hole goes all the way through. So another neat tool is to create a center line about that circle, because it kind of gives the machinist an idea that we have a hole that goes all the way through. So a way you can do that is by using this thing called a centerline bisector, which is in the upper right corner here above the center mark. So we're going to choose the centerline bisector, choose this line, and choose this line, and notice that it puts a center line. Okay. Now we also should do that in the right side as well. Okay, so the hole that represents, or the hidden lines that represent the hole, is right here and right here, and there's our center mark. Okay, now see, we can use those center marks as lines that we could dimension to. Okay, so we can dimension to that hole. All right, and if you another thing is, I'm going to hit the escape button to get out of the center mark. What we could do is also go to those center marks, and we could drag them out so that they stand out a little bit more. So all I did was, it just moved my mouse over to the center mark until you see these little green dots show up. And I'm just putting my mouse on it and using the left mouse button and just dragging them out. Okay. And the reason why is because I want to be able to add dimensions to these lines. Okay, and I want to go towards the end point. So it just kind of shows a little bit more detail where that hole is. Now it's optional, but you can also put a center mark on the isometric view circle by just choosing the center mark and moving your mouse over there, and you'll see that it creates a nice little center mark there. Okay, now we don't need to put a center mark in the rectangle because it's not a circle, so we can go ahead and do that. Now, there's multiple ways of doing dimensioning. I'm going to show you some basic ways of doing dimensioning, but the other thing is oh, sorry about this little error here. All right. So what we're going to do is go ahead and start adding dimensions because we want to be able to give the machinist who's going to be building this block enough dimensions so they know how to build this. You can't just give them this particular sketch without letting them know specific dimensions. Now, I'm going to show you one way of doing it, which is the way that I'd like for you guys to do that. But this is also, if we go back to the block part file, you'll notice that under the extrusion, when I created the original part file, why I moved these dimensions outside the part, and that'll come. You'll understand that a little bit more detail when I discuss one way of doing dimensioning. Okay, so let's go back to the block IDW. Okay, and so I'm just going to use the basic dimension command, and this is kind of like when you actually created the part. But I need to get some basic dimensions, and one of the basic dimensions would be to do the overall length, and there is the overall length. And a window should pop up that says Edit Dimension. And if you notice these little brackets here, what we can do is we can actually, that's the default dimension, so you don't want to mess with that. But if I wanted to, I could put other comments here by just clicking on to the right of those little brackets, and I could say, Professor U, if I wanted to. But I don't need to put any other dimensions here because it's just a horizontal dimension. To the right, you can also notice that you have little symbols, and you probably have seen some of these, like the counterbore symbol. We have the depth symbol. We have a countersink, a center line. So we have multiple things that we could do. We could also change the precision and tolerance. Instead of only having 2 decimal places, we could go with 3 decimal places, 1 decimal place, no decimals. Even have up to 8 decimal places. Okay. We could hide the dimension value if we wanted to. We could make the dimension left justified, center justified, right justified, top, middle, and bottom justification. But we're just going to leave all that stuff up there alone. And we're also going to leave the precision to be 2 decimal places for now. Okay. All right, so we hit OK, and that gives us our horizontal dimension. And another thing I want you to notice, where I put the dimension, I make sure my dimension is always outside my part. We also don't want to clog up this particular area between the text. We never want to have our dimension. I'm going to hit escape for a sec. Try not to ever do this, where you have the dimension outside the title, or have the dimension go through the title. Okay, that's something that you're going to get points deducted from. Okay, so we want to always try to make sure our dimensions are outside our part and nothing on the inside. You don't want to have your dimension on the inside like this. Okay, that's just not appropriate. So we're going to keep our dimension on the outside. Now, other dimensions that we need, we could do this vertical height, but to kind of make things a little bit easier, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put that dimension, which is the same dimension here in the right side view. If you notice this length, okay, actually we need to have the width and this is the height, so we could put the height over here or we could put the height over here. So let's go ahead and put a height dimension since we have the circle over here. Let's choose it to be over here on the left. Oh, I got to choose dimension first, then choose this line, and I'm going to choose that dimension, hit it. Okay. All right. So I need a width dimension. I'm going to put that, go ahead and put that in the right side view. I'm going to choose the width dimension here and hit OK. So that takes care of the overall width, height, and length. Now I need to have some locations of the holes that are in here. So I don't clutter things up, I'm going to go ahead and choose a dimension from like this line just by selecting the left line. And let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit. Move up here to the... Okay, I don't want... I make sure I have that dimension on the left side. Just hit OK. No, I don't need that dimension. I wanted to do a dimension from the left side of the line to the end point of that center line. See how I have that? So I'm going to make sure that's outside the part and hit OK. Now anytime you have a dimension, if you hit escape, I can move the dimension to be like either right or the left. And now notice that I can't put it on the middle of the line because there's just not enough room for it. Okay, so I'm just going to choose that. So I have that dimension now. Okay, so I have the 0.5 inch dimension, so I know where it is horizontally. Now I need to know where it is vertically. So let's go ahead and go to the front view and choose dimension. I'm going to choose the bottom line, left click the bottom line, then left click the end point of that center mark, and I'm going to put that right in there. Okay, now notice that my dimension is inside this dimension. Okay, so I want to make sure that I try to keep it as clean as possible. And notice that Inventor automatically puts a space in between the dimension line and the actual part. All right. Now another thing that I need to do is identify the size of that hole. So if I just select the hole itself by left clicking it, you'll notice that it automatically puts the dimension leader, and it also puts a the diameter symbol, so it shows you that it's a hole. And the other thing I want to do is type in some text. So if I go over here to this window and to the right of the characters or the brackets, I put a space, and then I'm going to type in all caps THRU. That way it kind of identifies that the hole goes all the way through. Of course, that's not spelled correctly, but that's just an abbreviation for the word through, that so that when we look at the part, even though we have the hidden lines that shows that it's through, it's just a nice little note that that indicates to the machinist that the hole goes all the way through. Okay. Now we have a couple other dimensions. Now we could have technically put this 0.25 inch dimension over here from the bottom to that. And it's just a matter of preference. Okay, but the last thing we need to do is go ahead and identify the hole. And the best view to identify the size of the hole is probably in the front view, because we usually don't want to dimension off of hidden lines, so we try to avoid that. So I'm just going to dimension this line right here to the top. So I got a 0.45 there. Just accept the default. Let me zoom in a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to just choose that line to this line here, make that 0.5, and I'm going to choose this line to this line and make that 0.25. Okay, and I think I need one more, which is the dimension from here to here, which is 0.2. Okay, so I have all the dimensions I need to properly identify how to draw this part. Okay, so now another thing that I want you to notice, that we can also pull up dimensions that are created from the part file. And another thing you could do is use retrieve. Okay, so when you click on the box that says retrieve, you can select your view. So let's just select and this is going to get kind of busy, but let's select the front view. Okay, now the next thing you need to do after you've selected the front view, notice the other dimensions kind of got grayed out. We want to select dimensions. Now let's zoom in here, and you'll see that there are several dimensions that are out there now, and I could have automatically, instead of drawing out my dimensions, selected the certain dimensions that are here. Okay, but um, I'm not going to select any of these right now. I could have selected, there's the 3-inch length dimension, and all I'd have to do is manually just select which dimensions I want to keep, like this 0.5 and this 0.25. And if I hit apply, hit cancel, you'll see the dimensions that I had, but this is just getting kind of busy, so I'm just going to undo by hitting Control Z because I already selected these dimensions. Okay, so that's pretty much it as far as how to do the dimensions. Now let me just show you a couple other features, and another thing that you're going to need to do, and part of the requirement, is making sure this title block is filled in. Now there are two ways of filling in the title block. One is you could just use the text command and just select text, and I could just click an area and just type in this box, and let's make that larger text, and I could say block. Okay, hit OK, and there's the block, and then I hit escape to get out of the text command. I can move that word block up here so that it's centered. Another thing I could do is, if I zoom in a little bit, you see where it says drawing and it has Unking M and the date. I need to fill this stuff in, and the best way to do that, and so I'm going to undo the block text by Control Z. If we go up here to where you see it says ANSI large, if I click on the plus sign under ANSI large, you'll see this thing that says field text. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the icon, double click on that. You'll see another window that says Edit Property Fields. Okay, let me just drag the right corner of that. Now there's where my Unking M and my 2-24-2014 date. This kind of looks like an Excel spreadsheet, and that's done that way for a reason. So if I just click on a specific cell within this spreadsheet and highlight it, you'll see a button up here that says iProperties, and that's similar to the iProperty window that you had when we were selecting materials for previous assignments. So if I select that button, you'll see another window, and what I want to do is go through here on some of these little tabs. Okay, you'll see various tabs. We don't need to worry about the Save tab or the Custom tab, but the ones in particular are things like the Summary. You can change the title of this to block. You can change the author to you, and so in my case it'll be Michael D. Unking. If I wanted to put in company, I could put it here as Thomas Nelson CC. I could throw some comments. If I have a specific category or keywords, I can do that. Under project, let's put the part number as just block. I never chose what the material type was, so I could have said like steel. The designer, I'm going to change that to me, and under engineer I'm going to change that to me as well. I'm going to say the estimated cost is, you don't even have to do this, but I'm just going to throw it in there. I'm going to say $52. And the creation date is 0. If I had a vendor or a web link, I could throw that in there. Now, the important tab that I want you to do is the status tab. In the status tab, I want you to type in under to the right of check by your name, Now you don't need to capitalize these. I'm just doing that just for effect. Engineer approved by. I'm going to want you to put in your name as well. Click the box that has the date on it. Manufactured approved by. Type in your name and the checkbox there and hit apply. And if you hit close, you'll notice that everything is filled in, okay, that I want you to fill in. Okay, so let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit more on that particular area. Notice that it put in the drawing number, the block, the title, block. It filled in all this information and also put in the company that it'll work for. And you could make up some name of a company if you want to, or you could put in Thomas Nelson. Okay, but here is all the information that's required. So when you finish your part, each part, this is the kind of layout that I want to see. I want to see dimensions. I want to see all the labels of each one of your views. And I want an isometric view. It doesn't have to be scaled to by a factor of 2. But I want you to try to maximize the use of this screen. So if you have to change the scale of your front view, so be it. But I wanted to make sure that you have everything in here. I want your dimensions outside your part view, and I don't want any dimensions or any part of the drawings to go over this border. So for example, if I were to move this over here, I do not want to see anything like that where part of the part's going outside the drawing border. It has to stay within the drawing border. Now there's one last thing that we can do. If I found out that the C-size sheet is not something that I want to use, you can actually change the border as well, or the sheet. And if you right click on the sheet itself, like this icon right here, if you right click on that, you'll see where it says edit sheet. We can actually change the size of the sheet to a D size sheet, which is actually a little bit bigger. Okay, don't submit your assignments like this with all this blank area, because if you have a lot of blank space, you're going to get points deducted. Okay, we could change that to a smaller sheet, to maybe like a B size sheet, and you'll see that everything, the way I've drawn it, is it's just too small. So all right, so we'll just leave this as it is, and I'm going to go ahead and save that as, and I can save it as the same name as the block. Now keep in mind that if you do this, okay, you do the part. Let's go ahead and open up the assignment for this week. Okay, just to show you, I'm going to go ahead and go into okay, if we go into Blackboard, and I'm just going to use my morning classes layout, or Blackboard shell. So if we go under like the assignments under learning modules, and go down here, it says part drawings and dimensioning, and go into the assignments. Notice that in here I'm saying complete the Chapter 8.1 exercise and the Chapter 8.3. You have to submit 2 items, a part file and a drawing file. If you only submit the IDW to this assignment, I will not be able to open it up, and I'm not going to give you a decent grade, because I have to have the part file and the IDW in order to be able to see the drawing file. So you just click on the assignment link, and when you go underneath here for browse my computer, now don't do this with this sample exercise that I did, but for your particular assignment, you're going to find Chapter 8-1 and Chapter 8-1.idw. So let me go ahead and find these 2 part files that I created earlier, just to show you as an example. All right, let's see. I'm probably just overlooking it. Okay, well, what you need to do is just when you browse my computer, make sure you put the IPT in the IDW file. Okay, so you need to have both the part file and the IDW submitted. And if you also notice, there's a rubric on how I'm going to grade your assignment, making sure first and foremost your view cube orientation is um, set up in the right way, making sure you're giving me a proper isometric view, any drawing area errors or blank sketches, work planes, make sure your part's complete, your drawing's complete with your IDW file included, dimension spacing, making sure your dimensions are separated from one another, and making sure that you have all the proper dimensions in there. Okay, um, and then just hit submit, and you'll be done with each assignment. So um, just make sure that you do the same for both. I need a part file and a drawing file. And so if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to send me an email, and I'll be more than happy to reply to your email and help you out. And also make sure that you have the title block completely filled in with all your dimensions and your isometric view. This has to be shaded with your hidden lines on the other views. Feel free to watch this video as many times as you need to understand how to do this assignment. And again, if you have any questions, I should be back in class on Wednesday and we'll be able to get through that. All right, take care and have a wonderful rest of the day.